Oh, goodness me. That was nice. Thank you very much to our musicians, and thank you so much for being here this morning to celebrate with us. We have a brand new focus for this month. We're talking about abundance, prosperity. Perfect time in the world to talk about that, isn't it? Isn't that? You know, I was just in Kansas City and talking about that very topic, and I did a workshop about creating definitions about abundance, prosperity, and all that sort of thing. And I read this story. You may know this story. It's quite common, but I love the story. It's a story about abundance to set the tone. It's about the story of a father in a very wealthy family one day taking his son to the country, it says, to show the son just how poor people live so that the son could better appreciate the wealth that their family had. And so they were hosted on a farm by a very poor family. On the way home, the father was quite pleased with himself and asked the son, well, how was the trip? And the son said quietly, it was great. So prodding a little more, the father said, well, did you see the difference between how we live and how they lived? And the son said quietly, oh, yes. So the father prodded a little bit more and said, well, what did you learn from the trip? And the son sighed again and said, well, I saw that we've got one dog and they've got four. We have a pool that reaches to the middle of our garden, and they've got a creek and it has no end. And we've imported lanterns to light up our garden, and they've got the stars at night. And we've got a patio and it reaches to the front yard, and they've got the whole horizon. And we've got a small piece of land to live on, and they've got fields that go on forever. And we've got servants who serve us, and they help each other. And we buy our food, and they grow their food. And he sighed again, and the boy's father was speechless. And in the silence, as he got ready to talk, the boy said again, you know, Dad, it really helped me to understand what poor means. Isn't that great? It's so wonderful because it reminds me that abundance is an experience. That's what abundance is. It's an experience. It's never a thing. Never. In fact, at the workshop, to warm up the folk, I said to them, just imagine, God forbid, that you were in a situation where a house was burning down, and let's assume all the people are safe, and let's assume that the pets are all safe, and you've just got 3 minutes. What 3 items would you take with you to save? And almost to a person, what they took were the items that reminded them of experiences, the photographs, the mementos. Hardly ever something valuable. When they talked about what was really important, it was the things that gave them an experience of love and freedom. Happiness. That's abundance. That's exactly what prosperity is. In fact, a professor of psychology in Colorado wrote these words, if money doesn't lead to happiness, then what does? Well, people receive more enduring pleasure and satisfaction from investing in life experiences rather than investing in material possessions. Well, that resonates for me. And it reminds me, well, you know what, if I've got the choice between buying a little something versus having a vacation in Italy, go for the experience. That's what I want. I want the experience. They live forever. They last longer. And they deliver more than what any material thing can ever deliver in my experience. So I might as well, start making time to do the things that make me happy. Because abundance has to do with happiness and freedom and relationship and connection. That's what it is. I was in Kansas City with about 20 of our folk, and we were there talking about all these things and all the experience of abundance we had when one community connected with the other. To remind us, we're not just some little satellite of people here on the planet. We've got brothers and sisters and cousins all over that feel about life in a similar way that we do. And I wish other centers for spiritual living would do the same thing. Different places. So just swap locations and experience each other, because the strength we get from remembering together, that's abundance. That's prosperity. And we had a fantastic time. We listened to jazz, and we ate barbecue, and some of us stayed out too late, and we went to the botanic gardens. And of course, while I was away was when my cat Fred decided not to wake up one morning, Well, it's hard to be sad because he had the most glorious, blessed, abundant life. 20 years of bliss, and the lessons, just so wonderful, So, of course, he's so smart, he chose for me to not be there, be real busy because he probably couldn't stand the drama. And so now he lives under the stepping stone that leads to a little temple I'm building, and he's just as alive. And that's abundance, the experience we have of each other and our dear ones. It's so wonderful. And while we were there in Kansas City, we did a similar thing to what we did when they were here. We took questions, asked people what's on their mind when the subject of abundance comes up. And don't you know, the questions that they ask might as well have been our questions. So I brought them home. I mean, are you sure you didn't write this one? Here's this. Listen to this. How can I feel that I am okay in this craziness of all the world's financial woes that overflow negativity on all of us? Is that a good question? Did you write that one? A few of us wrote that, have it on our mind. Well, you know what? It just reminded me about our faith tradition. We are religious scientists, and our faith tradition was born in the Depression, during war. It rose up to meet the need of people who believe like you and I do, to stand firm, because we have never been partial to going with the group mind. And yet from time to time we feel it like an overflow of negativity, and so we come and we gather and remind ourselves that, you know what? We're to drop deep roots in God, because that is where our source is. Because if we ever find ourselves believing that our good and our well-being depends on any person, on any place, on any government or anything, we are in such trouble. Because all of those things are finite. And they can only ever deliver to us what finite things can deliver. We're a group of people who practice to stay centered in what we know to be true about our relationship to the world around us, no matter what is going on. This may be a surprise to you, but this comes from our founder's famous book, This Thing Called Life. And these words in the opening chapter might as well have been written today. The world is crying out for God, lost in the canyons of disillusionment, where the trail runs out and stops against granite barriers that wall us in, and we cry, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" When war devastates the land and tremblingly we stand at the mouth of hell, listening to the screaming of airplanes, the wails of the wounded, and the terror of the headlines, we cry, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" Then he goes on, and the whole rest of the book addresses it. The answer to our need lies not in God's willingness, but in our will to accept and recognize the divine presence as the only great reality in life, and to understand that the power of God within us is like a sleeping giant which must be awakened that it may spring into action. And then the whole rest of the book explains how to do that. You see, there it is. That's what our thing is. How do I awaken the sleeping giant within me to address what's going on? Because I can easily fall for it. And the next question addresses it. How do I stay centered in the spirit of love and joy when I hear all the corrupted, greedy politicians talking? I find myself getting very angry. Did you write that one? Well, I'm thinking about this, how our faith rose up at a certain time, and how as a practicing religious scientist, what ours is to do is very special. Because look here, it's very easy for me to practice loving you because you already agree with me. And I love you. There's no challenge in that. It is so easy to affirm health when you're healthy, and to affirm prosperity when you've got. But we have been spoiled, so to speak. It's to affirm health when you're not healthy. That's a practicing religious scientist has. It's not for everybody. To affirm abundance when you don't have. To affirm peace when the world around you is chaotic. to affirm love when you find yourself first time not being able to love. Oh, that's the work of a religious scientist. You know, I was in South Africa and we're at the Center for Spiritual Living there. We're doing service outside. They've got armed guards watching the cars because cars get broken into all the time and people get hijacked on the way out from service. Now affirm you're at peace with the world and you're safe wherever you are because you're in God's kingdom. That's the true work of a religious scientist. Now, it's last year, one of my inner organs started bleeding uncontrollably. Nobody knew why. Now stand and affirm health. It's terrifying, In fact, in our textbook it says, to abandon the truth in the moment of need is to prove you never believed in it in the first place. Oh, it's fine to affirm abundance when we've got some. Once a famous religious scientist said, if science of mind was against the law, would there be enough evidence to convict you? See, because otherwise, I'm just going to come here and be here when I just hear things that fluff me up and keep me happy with what I am. Oh, no. Because then, I think my job is to comfort the afflicted and to disturb the comfortable. Yeah, it's your job too. That is the cutting edge of your growth potential. Otherwise, we just sit and talk about ourselves to ourselves all the time and how lovely it is. Yeah, everything is in its right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity, and every single person on this planet is a center of divine circulation in the mind of God, and that's our work. That's why we come here. It's not for everybody. It's too hard. How do I, says question number 3, not only help myself to prosper, but how do I inspire others to follow my lead so we can all become prosperous? Well, a number of things come to mind. First of all, by celebrating the success of other people when you don't have it. But it's so tempting. The thought of the group mind is to be jealous, to compare, to want what they've got. No, celebrate what they have. I hear that sometimes people say, well, I'm not coming to the Center for Spiritual Living in the month of October because they're talking about that money stuff, and I don't want to hear anything about that. You heard that? You just look at the numbers, the attendance to go down, Or watch around Valentine's Day, the recommitment ceremony. People say, well, I'm not coming to that service where they have the recommitment service. I don't want to see all of that. And I think about that. I think about the powerful message you're giving to your own soul. That's not for me. Hello? Here's what you can do. Put yourself in the environment where it has been talked about and celebrated. Put yourself in those environments. Another thing you can do for other people is don't preach to them about prosperity or how they should think about anything, love, prosperity, politics, or anything. That's my job. But seriously, in our private lives, no preaching. You see, because you and me, let us become the example of what's possible. In all of this that we say is possible through science of mind, let me become an example. That's enough, because when I attain that, that's good enough for the whole world. Because I'll tell you something, I'm struggling with a lot of things that I've got in theory but not in practice. Let me become first a center of divine love. And let me look at all the people on the world news today with love and compassion without a shred of hatred before I tell you what to do. Can the church say amen? Amen. You let the whole world go down in a pool of fear, not us. Question number 4. Should I spend money in this time of trouble or put it ... in the collection basket? In parentheses, it says, yeah, this just occurred to me. And I love that question because I'll tell you something about the energy of fear. The energy of fear is to contract and to hold on. And the worst time to quit giving is in times of need and fear. The worst time. Now, I hear from people all the time. They say, well, I can't give right now. And I want to say to them, that is like blasphemy in religious science. Don't even use that sentence. Don't even say it, But you can always give. And you find ways to give. Give your attention. In fact, look at where you're giving your attention right now, the news. I bet you there are people all around you that would just love to have your attention. Find ways to give and find ways to receive, because when the energy of fear grabs us and contracts us, not only do we want to stop giving, but we stop noticing where we can receive. When we were putting together the pledge program, we said to ourselves on the planning team, what can we give to people as a thank you for the gift of their pledge? And we said, well, we would want to give them something, but we were challenged financially. So we said, well, we'll just stay open until the phone rings. And our friends down the road say, we've got 1,000 copies of the Bhagavad Gita. Would you like them? And he said, that's how it is. And so we said, yes, thank you very much. And so for every person who wrote a pledge, we were able to give them a Bhagavad Gita. But you know what we didn't say? Use it as like a trick to say, pledge and we'll give you a Gita. That's not giving. No, you pledge, then there's a surprise. That's giving. To stay open to how, and then notice if when you got the card to say thank you, you just threw it away. See, you start paying attention. That's what you do in times like this. It's all work in consciousness. When we're talking about abundance, it's abundance in consciousness that we're talking about this month. The focus of what's going on inside about you. I also say to people who say, I can't give right now, I say, well, what I want you to do is I want you to get a quarter every week and put it in an envelope. You can find quarters on the street near your couch, You just put it in the envelope and you write your name on it. You put it in the offering when it comes by, and he'll go, oh, because it brings up all kinds of feeling of self-worth. And then what happens is they start to realize they are judging themselves about their wealth, about their spirituality based on how much they give. Now, that's no teaching you heard from this church. It's never about the amount. It's about the story you tell yourself while you're doing it. It's about the freedom or control you experience while you're giving it. It's about the intended outcome that you have and how attached you are to it. It's never about the amount. Number something. 5. As a nation, we seem to be addicted to oil, credit cards, and stuff. Is this the abundance and prosperity that Ernest Holmes is speaking of? Isn't that wonderful? Because there's this fear that, if we teach people to be aware of abundance, that they will become greedy and want more and use up the planet and destroy everything. It's not my experience. I think when people start to learn that they are in a flow of abundance, then they stop reaching out for more. When they realize they're in that flow, there's always something for them, and wherever they are safe, then they stop reaching and grabbing. And that what emerges instead is a sense of enough, and a sense that opulence comes from the type of experiences I have with you versus what I own. True abundance is the connection on a heart level to the love we share. This idea of being greedy and using up the whole earth and destroying everything, where does it come from? It's not something that we teach. I think it comes from an old religious idea. An old religious idea that says that you do not belong here. That life starts afterwards. You just got to get through this. It's an obstacle course. And it's here for you to use up and dominate and control as long as you get through. No, well, we don't teach people to die tomorrow. We teach them to live today. And out of that livingness to invoke in them this idea of oneness. And out of that oneness, the mutual respect and the stewardship that causes me to act in such a way that future generations can have a safe passage in this world. To be here today and to love being here. There's nothing in our textbook that teaches you can have something for nothing. In fact, it says right there in the chapter on abundance, don't be mistaken. It says this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not something for nothing. The spiritual laws of the universe are not laws of license. They are laws of liberty. Like it says in the Bible, all things are possible, but not all things are advisable. That's what we teach. In fact, in the chapter on abundance, Ernest Holmes says, in the end, you will discover that the only true prayer is this: thy will be done. When you understand that the will of God is completely for you, and your experience of opulence and connection and love, the experience of being. What's the time? Time for one more. I want to do by inspiration and not desperation when it comes to working with ideas of prosperity. I want to do it with inspiration and not desperation when it comes to working with ideas of prosperity. That's right, then do so. Because the energy of desperation is repellent to everybody and everything. Don't you know? Once a teacher said to me, I don't always get what I pray for, but I tend to get what I pray from. So coming to peace with where you are in the world is the place to stand when you're looking for change. Oh, try and change through violence and ridicule and sarcasm. Good luck. That's right. And the next and last card says something about, well, what does the role of surrender play in all of this? Well, there is a vast difference between the energy of giving up and surrender. Giving up is hopelessness. Surrender has got a smile on its face because it is the realization through all your work and all your experience and all your love and all of your living that there is something larger than your life going on over here. And surrendering is agreeing with its agenda, which is more life, more love. We have some recommended books of the month, and one of them is Alan Cohen's Relax into Wealth, and he talks about that idea of surrendering. He tells a beautiful story right in the introduction about when he was at the airport and his plane was announced to be late, delayed several hours, and how he suddenly felt himself flipping back into that group mind. I've got to control it. If I'm really combative with the customer service, I'll get my way pushed in, and I've got to get my upgrade through, and then he stopped in a moment and realized, oh my goodness, I've capitulated into the group mind think. It's such a beautiful thing. It's so tender, and reading it reminded me, at this time, this world that I'm in, there's never been a time more valuable for a religious scientist. You don't hardly even have to leave your house. And around you everywhere, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity to practice and pray. Yeah. Now you get up and say, I'm a practicing religious scientist, advanced course today. And you just walk into the world and just watch all those places where you capitulate. So what does a practicing religious scientists do? Well, keep this in mind. In all matters, they pray first. What does a practicing religious scientist do? They are not partial to going with the group mind. What does a practicing religious scientist do? They are excessively interested in personal responsibility and less interested in blaming others. What does a practicing religious scientist do? They stand for freedom, and they celebrate the diversity that comes with that effortlessly. And they act in socially responsible ways because of their conviction of oneness. Let us pray. There is only one life, one thing going on here, the life of God, everywhere present in and all things, in and through all things. This life of God is divinity expressing itself. It has only one agenda: to express more love, more peace, more joy. And it does so by means of each one of us. And through this prayer, and through this prayer alone, we are being reawakened to the truth of our being, that life and its agenda is ours. And so we surrender into it, seamlessly, effortlessly, remembering that there is not a thing in this world that can distract us from our journey. Not a thing. And so we give thanks for this and what it is wakening up in us, the strength, the courage, the vitality, and the resiliency, for the remembrance that our good depends on no person, no place, no thing, no government, no outcome, no possession, nothing other than God. I invite you to take a breath in with me so that we can exhale into a moment of contemplation.